The beeping of the heart monitor was a slow, mournful dirge. Each weak blip felt like a countdown to the end. I turned my head on the pillow, the movement costing me more energy than I seemed to have left. Beside me, in the matching hospital bed, lay the man I had shared my life with for 5 decades. Arthur Blackwood. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, his once vibrant green eyes now clouded with age and pain. He was looking at me, his breath a shallow rasp. I tried to smile, to offer some final comfort, but his voice, thin and trembling, cut through the sterile air. "Elara," he whispered. My name. A flicker of warmth, quickly extinguished by his next words. "There's a next life. I won't marry you." I felt my own heart stutter, a physical pain that had nothing to do with my failing body. The sheer, unvarnished contempt in his voice was a poison dart. "I'll choose Sophia," he continued, his gaze drifting to the ceiling, to some memory I wasn't a part of. Sophia Vance. Sophia. The name was a ghost that had haunted our entire marriage. His first love, the one who got away. The one he'd supposedly never gotten over, even as he built a life, a family, a fortune with me. Rage, hot and bitter, flooded my veins. It was the last emotion I ever felt. The heart monitor shrieked a final, frantic protest, and then there was nothing. Nothing and then everything. Harsh sunlight stabbed into my eyes. I jolted, disoriented. The smell of disinfectant was gone, replaced by the scent of cut grass and blooming jasmine. I was standing, my legs strong beneath me. Blinking, I took in my surroundings. I was on the university quad, under the old oak tree where... "Elara, are you deaf?" The voice. Young, sharp, dripping with disgust. I knew that voice. My head snapped up. There he was. Arthur Blackwood. But not the dying old man. This was the 23-year-old Arthur, dressed in a tailored suit for a presentation, his face a masterpiece of youthful arrogance. His green eyes, clear and bright, glared at me with an impatience I remembered all too well. A dizzying wave of understanding washed over me. The memories of a lifetime, the pleas, the tears, the slow erosion of my dignity, the final crushing betrayal, crashed into the consciousness of my 22-year-old self. I had been reborn. I was back on the very day he broke up with me. In my previous life, this was the moment my misery truly began. I had knelt. I had begged. I had cried until I hyperventilated and was rushed to the hospital. My very public display of despair had forced him to reluctantly take me back, a decision he would resent me for until his dying day. Now standing here, the phantom pain of his deathbed words was sharper than any memory. "I'll choose Sophia Vance." My heart ached, pricked by 1,000 needles. The love I had carried for him for a lifetime curdled in an instant, leaving behind a cold, clear clarity. "Elara, we're breaking up," Arthur said, his tone flat and final. "Whether you agree or not. I know you love me, but I have to take responsibility for Sophia." The script was the same. He was waiting for my performance of grief. He needed it, I realized now. He needed to see me shattered to validate his own sense of importance. A cold smile tugged at my lips. "Breaking up? Fine by me." His expression froze. The carefully rehearsed speech died in his throat. His face flushed a dull red, the words stuck. He looked so ridiculous, so deflated that I almost laughed. This was the man I had wasted a lifetime on? Only when you stop loving someone can you finally see their true face. This wasn't a breakup born of necessity. It was a power play designed to make me suffer, to make me beg, to crush my dignity completely. "Well then," I said, my voice dripping with a sweetness I didn't feel. "I wish you two, a bitch and a dog, eternal happiness." I turned to walk away, my steps already feeling lighter. But his hand shot out, his fingers digging into my wrist like a vice. "Who are you calling that?" His face was dark, a storm cloud of fury. No one had ever spoken to him like that. He was Arthur Blackwood, the golden boy, and I was supposed to be his devoted shadow. I shook off his hand with a strength that surprised us both. "Didn't understand me? Let me make it clear." I rose on my tiptoes, bringing my lips close to his ear. I could feel him tense. "Sophia's the bitch. You're the dog. Perfect match." He raised his hand to slap me. The instinct of a spoiled man who'd never been denied. But I was faster. My life of quiet submission was over. The sound was sharp, crisp, satisfying. My palms stung from the impact. A collective gasp rippled from the classmates who had been pretending not to watch. That's for all your fake love over the years, I said, my voice steady. The left side of his face swelled red instantly. He touched it, his eyes wide with disbelief. Are you crazy? I took 2 deliberate steps back, a brilliant, unburdened smile spreading across my face. No. I just don't like filthy dogs anymore. He stood rooted to the spot, staring at me as if I were a stranger. And I was. The Alara who would wait 3 hours in the rain for him was gone, replaced by a woman who had seen the bitter end of that particular story. Seeing the crowd gathering, he slipped back into his default persona, the cold, stoic victim. I never thought you'd turn into such an unreasonable shrew, he declared, his voice carrying for effect. Jealousy has made you unrecognizable. But I won't change my mind. The whispers began. I could feel their pitying, curious eyes on me. Enough, I said, waving a dismissive hand. Stop embarrassing yourself here. Don't worry. From this day forward, if I, Ilara Vance, so much as look at you again, may lightning strike me dead. I turned and walked away. My steps were so light they almost floated. This was what it felt like to let go. It wasn't a defeat, it was a liberation. I pulled out my phone, a clunky old thing that felt alien in my hand, and texted my dad. Dad, about the Blackwood family project. Don't trouble yourself. We're not investing. Back in the dorm, I was buzzing with a strange, euphoric energy. I stood in front of the mirror looking at my reflection. My 22-year-old self stared back, cheeks full of collagen, eyes bright and clear, unclouded by decades of disappointment. Idiot, I told my reflection. Is any man worth living or dying for? Of course not. My phone rang. It was my dad. Alara, what's going on? Yesterday you begged me to help Arthur. I took a deep breath. I analyzed the project, Dad. The risk is too high. Let's not take that gamble. He paused. A friend? I thought you two were dating. No, I said, my voice clear and light. Just friends. And now not even that. I added for good measure, yesterday he even stayed at a hotel with another woman. A longer silence. Then cautiously, Sweetie, are you okay? I'm fine, Dad, I said, and for the first time I meant it. He's not worthy of me. I could almost hear his sigh of relief through the phone. That's my girl. If anything happens, just tell me. After hanging up, a sudden sharp grief for my parents overwhelmed me. In my past life I had owed them far too much. They had poured all their resources into the Blackwood family's risky ventures, all because Mr. Blackwood had said, "Your daughter is head over heels for my son. They'll be family sooner or later." Our company was eventually swallowed by theirs. My parents were forced into early retirement, and my dad, ever the stoic, had comforted me. We're getting older. Isn't it better to rest? Let Arthur handle things now. And I, the lovesick fool, had believed him. In this life I would never make that mistake again. For the sake of my health, for the sake of loving myself and my family, I would stay far away from men like Arthur Blackwood. Life was too short. While I was still young, I would go all in. I spotted a poster on my wall. The deadline for the campus entrepreneurship competition was in 3 days. In my past life I had been too devastated to join. Arthur's team had won second prize, his first pot of gold in business. It was time to get my own. The next day I went to the cafeteria for lunch, my purpose renewed. I saw the entrepreneurship competition poster again, this time stopping to read the details. It was a university-wide event with serious venture capital attention for the winners. Interested in this? A clear, pleasant male voice asked from behind me. I turned. A young man stood there, a backpack slung over one shoulder. He was tall and lanky, dressed in a simple white shirt and jeans, with a pair of black-rimmed glasses perched on his nose. Behind the lenses, his eyes were a warm, intelligent brown, and they seemed to be smiling. I knew him. Leo Thorne. In my past life, Leo had become a rising star in the tech world. The company he founded went public 5 years later with a market value in the billions. We had moved in different circles then. I was the dutiful wife of Arthur Blackwood, and he was the brilliant, reclusive genius. I might be, I said, crossing my arms. Tell me about your project. His eyes lit up with an enthusiasm that was utterly disarming. He swung his backpack around and pulled out a laptop, opening it right there in the cafeteria. It's an AI-based medical imaging diagnostic support system, he began, his voice gaining speed and passion. In simple terms, it uses deep learning algorithms to help radiologists detect early-stage cancers more accurately and efficiently. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was exactly the kind of technology that would become monumental 2 decades later. In my last life, when I was in my 50s, it was a system just like this one that had caught my breast cancer early and saved my life. Drawing on the 75 years of life and business experience from my previous life, I began to dissect his presentation. Your technical specs are impressive, Leo, but your commercialization path is weak. You're focusing on direct sales to hospitals, but the procurement cycles are too long. You need to partner with larger medical equipment manufacturers. And your pricing model, it's unsustainable for widespread adoption. The more I spoke, the wider his eyes grew behind his glasses. He looked from me to his screen and back again. How do you have such sharp business instincts so fast? He finally asked, his voice full of awe. I shrugged casually. Family business. I've been around it since I was little. It wasn't a complete lie. By the way, how did you think to approach me? He pushed his glasses up his nose, a faint, shy smile playing on his lips. I've been following your work in the finance club for a while. Your analysis of the tech sector last semester was prescient. Something in me stirred. In my past life, no one had ever followed my work. I had been Arthur's girlfriend, then his wife, then his widow. My identity had always been an appendage to his. I sat down and we talked for over an hour, diving into the details. When I finally returned to the dorm, buzzing with intellectual excitement, I was immediately surrounded by my roommates. Their faces were a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity. Alara. Oh my God, are you okay? We saw the forum. We can't believe Arthur did that. That bastard. Took me a moment to understand. The news of our breakup had spread. I opened the campus forum on my computer. The headline was brutal. Campus heartthrob Arthur Blackwood's new relationship revealed. A love made in heaven. Scrolling down, the comment section was a cesspool. Finally, he dumped Alara Vance. About time. She was never good enough for him. Word is, Alara clung to him and wouldn't let go. The new girl is Sophia Vance. She's the real deal, rich family, Cambridge grad. I narrowed my eyes. Sophia. In my past life, after her family's business collapsed, they had all moved abroad. She had enrolled in some no-name college, leaving Arthur without a word. He had moped for a year before turning to me. And I, in my foolishness, had believed his lies about me being his solace, his true love. But the moment Sophia returned, they had picked up right where they left off. I was about to close the page when a new post popped up, exposing Alara Vance's hidden scandals. I clicked in. It was pure, unadulterated fiction from top to bottom. It claimed I dated multiple men simultaneously, that I got into the university through family connections, and heavily insinuated that I had used underhanded means to pursue Arthur. The poster's ID was Whispering Breeze. My money was on Sophia. In my past life, this would have shattered me. I would have collapsed into a sobbing heap. But now I felt a cold, calm fury. I calmly took screenshots of everything, saving them as evidence, and sent them directly to my dad's company legal team. Then I registered a new forum account and left a single comment under the post. Spreading rumors that get over 500 shares can land you in prison. Evidence collected, OP. Expect your court summons. Such low-level tactics. How stupid must I have been in my previous life to give everything for a man who allowed this to happen? 3 days later, Leo and I walked into the competition venue. The air was thick with ambition and nervous energy. And of course, standing near the entrance was Arthur Blackwood with Sophia Vance on his arm. They were flanked by 2 of his sycophantic teammates, strutting like they owned the place. Sophia was dressed head to toe in designer brands, her chin tilted at a haughty angle, looking down on everyone she deemed beneath her. Isn't this Alara Vance? Arthur's voice cut through the chatter, deliberately loud. Found yourself a new boyfriend so soon? His gaze swept over Leo and he smirked with pure disdain. A computer science nerd? Alara, your taste has really taken a nosedive. Sophia covered her mouth with a delicate hand, letting out a tinkling, fake laugh. So this is your junior, Alara? Leo, your standards aren't great either. Figures. Nothing good ever comes out of a dog's mouth, I replied coolly. I let my gaze drop pointedly to Sophia's flat stomach. I heard Arthur's taking responsibility for you. Just not sure if the kid's actually his. Remember to get a paternity test when it's born." Arthur's face twisted in fury. "You're the one with no shame. And now you're slandering others." I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of printed photos. "I'm giving you a friendly reminder. And you want to bite me? Good thing I've had my rabies shots." I turned my attention to Sophia. "And by the way, selling yourself isn't shameful. What's shameful is that you couldn't even get a good price." Sophia's face drained of all color. "This school isn't the place for the likes of you." I held up the photos. They were grainy but unmistakable. "These are screenshots from the hotel security cameras. Arthur, you and Sophia during the time we were dating. So tell me who's really the one without self-respect." I gave them a brilliant cold smile. "If you're mentally ill, don't bother coming to me. I'm not a vet." With that, I turned and walked with Leo toward the contestants' area, leaving the two of them pale and stammering as the crowd gawked. The competition itself was a blur of focused energy. Leo was a machine on the technical side, his explanations clear and passionate. I handled the business plan and the Q&A, pinpointing market pain points and mapping out a profit model with a precision that made the investors in the room lean forward in their seats. We advanced to the finals in first place. Arthur's project, a flashy but hollow social media app, failed to impress. It barely scraped into the last qualifying spot. He blocked me in the hallway after the results were announced, his voice a low, angry growl. "Don't get too happy too soon, Alara. The finals are the real battle." I was about to ignore him and walk away when his phone rang. He answered, and his expression darkened with every passing second. He hung up and stalked toward me, fury written all over his face. "This was you, wasn't it?" he snarled. I put on my most innocent look. "Did you mean the little stunt on the confession wall?" "The Vance family just pulled their investment," he hissed, his teeth practically grinding together. "Do you have any idea how much my family will lose? All this, just to get back at me because we broke up." So that was it. And it had taken days for his family to even tell him. I smiled lightly. "How can you call it pulling out when we never invested in the first place?" His face was a mask of panic and rage. "No. Without that money, the Blackwood Group can't survive. You just wait." With a stormy glare, he turned and left. I watched him go, feeling nothing but a serene detachment. Once life gets back on track, your heart opens up. And mine was just beginning. The high from our competition success was intoxicating. For the first time in either of my lives, I was building something for myself, something that was entirely mine. The buzz around campus was no longer just about the scandalous breakup. It was about the sharp, savage girl who had slapped Arthur Blackwood and then gone on to dominate the entrepreneurship competition with a tech prodigy. The campus forum was on fire again, but this time the narrative had shifted. Memes were popping up everywhere. A split-screen image of me, caught mid-rant during our confrontation, looking fierce and unapologetic, juxtaposed with a photo of Arthur leaving the competition, dejected and pale. The comments were a balm to my soul. "Alara Vance is savage and fabulous. I love her. Arthur looked so gentle. Who knew he'd be such a snake? That mistress looked so cheap trying to act high class. Unpopular opinion. Alara and Leo actually make a great couple, right? Is it just me?" Reading that last one, a strange warmth spread through my chest. In my past life, I had been so blinded by the polished image Arthur presented to the world. Even when he was clearly in the wrong, a single well-acted apology was enough to make me forgive him. Now, with the rosy filter of love completely gone, I could see the real Arthur Blackwood, petty, selfish, and entitled. And the sight made me sick. I had actually spent an entire lifetime with a man like that. Over the next week, Arthur began to appear in my line of sight with an unnerving frequency. In the library, he'd be at a table nearby, pretending to read. In the cafeteria, he'd accidentally pass by my usual spot. In the lecture hall, he'd take a seat a few rows behind me. He always wore the same expression, a pained, conflicted look, as if he had something profound to say but was holding himself back. I knew exactly what this performance was about. The Vance family pulling out of their precarious investment deal had dealt a serious, possibly fatal, blow to the Blackwood Group. His father had undoubtedly given him a direct order: win Alara back by any means necessary. But it was far, far too late. Who would pity a dog that had betrayed its master? The day of the finals arrived. Leo and I were a well-oiled machine. Our presentation was flawless, our demo worked perfectly, and my answers to the judges' questions were sharp, informed, and backed by a business acumen that seemed to far exceed my years. We took first place without any suspense, and were immediately swarmed by venture capitalists handing us business cards. Through a gap in the celebrating crowd I saw Arthur. His team hadn't even placed in the top 3. He was standing alone in a corner, his shoulders slumped, staring at us with an expression I had never seen on him before. A tangled, ugly mix of raw anger, bitter jealousy, and the first faint flicker of regret. "Great working with you," Leo said, his voice husky with excitement and relief. When the crowd began to disperse, he reached out his hand. "Honestly, Alara, you're the best business strategist I've ever met." I shook his hand, feeling the firm, warm grip. "This is just the beginning, Leo." I wasn't joking. I had decades of practical experience and foresight he couldn't possibly imagine. As we stepped out of the venue into the cool evening air, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I knew it was Arthur. "Blair, we need to talk." I blocked the number without a second thought. We were nowhere near the end of this. The week after our championship win, Leo and I practically moved into the computer science lab. We were optimizing the AI system, refining the code, and preparing for our first official meeting with investors. At 3 a.m. on a Thursday, it was just the two of us left. A row of empty coffee cups lined the table like fallen soldiers. I watched his long, slender fingers fly across the keyboard, lines of code flowing across the screen, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known was possible. He suddenly turned to look at me, his eyes behind his glasses tired but bright with a fierce excitement. "You're really not sleepy?" "Not at all," I smiled. Back then, when I was rushing to finish a project, I stayed up for 3 days straight. It was the truth. In my past life, when I was helping Arthur build his business from the ground up, I often worked through the night while he was out at endless, networking events. Every time he stumbled home drunk and late, I would still force myself to clean him up and get him into bed before allowing myself to rest. "You're only a senior," Leo said curiously, pushing his glasses up. "Where'd you get all that project experience?" "Family business," I said lightly, steering the conversation back to a particularly tricky piece of code. "I've been around it since I was little." We were in the middle of a deep discussion about data compression when the lab door suddenly creaked open. Arthur stood in the doorway, holding 2 neatly packaged takeout boxes from an expensive-looking restaurant. He had clearly dressed up for this. His hair was perfectly styled, his jacket crisp. But the moment his eyes landed on Leo, his pleasant mask slipped and his expression darkened. "Alara." He quickly adjusted his face back into the gentle, concerned smile I knew so well from my previous life. It was the smile he used every time he wanted something from me. "I heard you were working late, so I brought you some food." The sight of that smile now only churned my stomach. "What do you want, Arthur?" He walked in and set the boxes on the table with a soft thud. "It's from that new Michelin-starred French place in the West End. I remember you like escargot." "Thanks, but no," I said, pushing the boxes away from me. "I don't like it anymore." His smile froze on his face. "Alara, do we really have to be like this? Even if we've broken up, we can still be friends, can't we?" "Friends?" I almost laughed. "Arthur, you suddenly showing up and playing nice? Is it because your dad's forcing you to win back the Vance family's investment?" His face changed instantly, confirming my suspicion. "How did you?" "Because it's obvious," I cut him off coldly. "You can't even act the part. My dad called today. He said your father personally went to my house, telling him we were just a young couple having a silly fight. Dad was worried, so he called to check on me. I told him very clearly that you and I have nothing to do with each other anymore." Arthur's mask finally shattered. He stepped forward and grabbed my wrist, his grip painfully tight. "Alara Vance, don't push it too far. Who do you think you are? I don't need you to get things done. Let her go." Leo was on his feet in an instant, his voice low but firm. "None of your business," Arthur snapped, glaring viciously at him. "This is between me and her." In a surprisingly swift motion, Leo pried Arthur's hand from my wrist. "Get out," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Or I'll call campus security right now." Arthur clutched his own wrist, his eyes blazing with a humiliated rage. But after a tense standoff, he snatched up the takeout boxes and slammed the door on his way out, the sound echoing in the silent lab. The next day at noon, Leo and I met with our first serious investor, Mr. Chin, at a quiet, upscale cafe. The meeting went unexpectedly well. Mr. Chin, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s, asked probing questions, but I had answers ready, drawing on my knowledge of future market trends. He was impressed, and by the end of the meeting he promised an angel investment of $5 million for a 20% equity stake in our newly christened company, Ether Tech. After we signed the preliminary letter of intent, he gave me a long, meaningful look before leaving. "Young lady," he said, "you're impressive. If the Blackwood family's young master ever realizes what he's missed out on, he'll regret it for the rest of his life." Once he was gone, Leo let out a huge sigh of relief, slumping back in his chair. "I was so nervous just now. I thought he might pull out because of all those rumors floating around." That afternoon, as if on cue, a new post appeared on the campus forum, pinned by the administration. The title was, "Official Statement and Legal Notice Regarding the Rumors About Student Alara Vance." My heart hammered against my ribs as I clicked on it. The post, published by the school's official account, contained a formal warning to the rumor spreaders and included a cease and desist letter from my father's lawyers. But the most explosive part was at the end, an audio file. With a trembling finger I pressed play. A recorded conversation, slightly muffled but unmistakable, filled my ears. "I need you to post it. Make it sound convincing. She needs to learn her place." It was Arthur's voice, cold and commanding. "Are you sure, man? This could get messy." Another male voice, hesitant. "Just do it. I'll make it worth your while. She's a jealous shrew who's trying to ruin my life. People need to know the truth." The internet, as expected, blew up. The comments came in a torrent. "So it's confirmed. Arthur Blackwood is that low. The official statement seals it. He actually orchestrated the whole smear campaign. Poor Alara, getting broken up with and then smeared by her ex. I knew Arthur seemed shady after that last incident." As I was scrolling through the vindicating comments, my phone rang. It was from another unfamiliar number. The moment I picked up, I heard Arthur's furious, ragged voice. "Alara Vance, you." I hung up immediately, blocked the number and deleted it. I let out a slow, steadying breath. The game was changing. Arthur was getting desperate. The day our business license for Ether Tech arrived, Leo was so excited he picked me up and spun me around in the middle of our tiny new office. "We really have our own company now," he exclaimed, setting me down gently. The light in his eyes shone like stars, and for a moment I just stared, captivated. Looking at his unbridled happiness, I couldn't help but marvel at the strange workings of fate. In my previous life I had been so obsessively focused on Arthur that I had never noticed the quiet, brilliant boy in my computer science elective. Even when he later became a tech titan, I hadn't given him more than a passing thought in the society pages. But now here I was with my own company, my own career, and a partner who looked at me not as an accessory but as an equal. That evening, as I was walking back to my apartment, I saw a familiar figure leaning against a lamppost near my building. Arthur. In the dim orange glow of the streetlight, his expression was unreadable, but the tension in his shoulders was palpable. "Alara," he said, stepping forward as I approached. "We really need to talk." I stepped to the side, intending to walk straight past him, but his voice followed me, low and edged with a suppressed, frantic anger. "Just because we broke up, you had to make your dad change your family's investment plans? You're trying to destroy my family." I stopped and turned to face him. "This is business, Arthur," I said, my voice flat. "But if you insist on making it personal, then fine. I just don't want my family's money filling your family's rotten, leaking hole." "Satisfied?" He stared straight at me, his eyes pleading in a way that felt utterly foreign on his face. "I know you still love me. I can feel it. As long as you convince your dad to invest again, I promise I won't cause any more trouble. We'll be happy. I'll always treat you well." The audacity was breathtaking. "Go be happy with your precious first love," I sneered. "You were so determined to take responsibility for her. What happened? Suddenly you're not responsible anymore? My eternal blessings to you both." Arthur's face turned a sickly pale. You weren't like this before." I didn't even bother wasting more words. Just then a familiar, modest sedan pulled up to the curb beside us. The window rolled down, revealing Leo's concerned face. "Get in," he said simply. Surprised, I opened the passenger door and slid in. "What are you doing here? Even when you're a workaholic, Sue, you should know when to take a break," he said, a small smile playing on his lips. He handed me a cup of my favorite drink, a warm, sweet chai latte. "I figured you might need this." I wrapped my hands around the warm cardboard cup, feeling a gentle, profound warmth spread through my chest, melting the last of the ice Arthur's presence had left behind. "Thank you," I whispered. As the car pulled away from the curb, leaving a stunned Arthur standing on the sidewalk, Leo suddenly asked, his eyes on the road, "Are you okay?" I turned to look at him, the street lights casting shifting shadows over his sharply defined profile. "I'm great, Leo," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. "I've never been this clear-headed before. I do regret those years I wasted when my judgment was clouded and dark. And I feel so sorry for my parents for what I put them through. But at least I finally see who's worth giving my heart to and who isn't." The car slowed at a red light. Leo turned his head toward me, his eyes deep and bright behind his glasses, reflecting the city lights. "So," he asked, his voice barely a whisper, "which one am I?" My heart skipped a beat, a flutter of nervous anticipation. But before I could form an answer, his phone rang, shattering the intimate moment. He answered it, and his expression darkened instantly. "What? Say that again." His voice was sharp, all softness gone. "The company's server has been hacked. Someone's trying to steal our core algorithm." He spun the steering wheel hard, executing a sudden sharp U-turn that threw me against my seatbelt. "We need to get back to the office," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "Now." I gripped my cup of chai tighter, the warmth doing little to fight the sudden chill that had settled in my bones. A hacker attack. At this specific timing. It was too convenient, too targeted. Could it be Arthur? Cornered, desperate, and lashing out like a wounded, filthy dog? The battle, it seemed, was far from over. In fact, it had just escalated to a whole new front. The cyber attack on EtherTech servers lasted for 3 full, grueling days. Leo and I, along with our small but dedicated tech team, practically lived in the office, taking shifts monitoring the server screens. The assaults were fierce, sophisticated, and clearly well-planned. This wasn't just some script kiddie looking for fun. This was a professional job. The attacker wasn't just trying to steal our medical imaging algorithm. They were also trying to plant a polymorphic virus designed to corrupt the entire database irreparably. "Here it comes again," Leo muttered at 4 a.m. on the second day. He straightened up in his chair, the relentless blue glow from the bank of monitors reflecting off his glasses, making him look like some cybernetic warrior. "This time it's bouncing through a proxy server in Seoul. They're getting clever." I rubbed my sore shoulders, my mind, despite the fatigue, drifting straight to Arthur. This kind of underhanded corporate espionage was exactly his style. In my past life, his company had been accused multiple times of stealing competitors' trade secrets, though he'd always managed to wriggle out of any real consequences with a combination of charm, lies, and legal threats. Exhausted, I walked to the window, looking down at the city that was just beginning to stir. The lack of proper rest was taking its toll. A wave of dizziness hit me, my temples pounded, and the world tilted alarmingly. The next thing I knew, I was lying in a hospital bed, the familiar, hated smell of disinfectant filling my nostrils. For a terrifying second, I thought I was back in that room with the dying Arthur. But then Leo's face swam into view, lined with worry. "The doctor said it's just severe exhaustion and stress," he said softly, his hand gently adjusting my blanket. "Nothing serious. You just need to rest." He tried to smile. "The attacks have stopped for now. But before coming here, I set up some new, more aggressive traps in the system. If they start again, we'll be able to trace the source right to their doorstep." Reassured, the adrenaline finally ebbed and a heavy lethargy took over. Now that I was awake and stable, Leo finally couldn't hold out any longer. He slumped into the chair beside my bed, his head falling onto the sheets, and was asleep in seconds. Looking at his broad back, the way his shoulders rose and fell with each deep breath, a wave of overwhelming warmth and gratitude filled my chest. This was a feeling of being protected, of being cared for, that I had never once felt from Arthur in my entire previous life. It wasn't a show. It was quiet, steadfast, and real. After a few hours of rest, I felt strong enough to get up and find some proper food. That's when I saw him. Arthur, looking haggard and disheveled, was walking into the hospital. My curiosity piqued. I followed at a distance, staying out of sight. He entered a private room on the cardiology floor. Through the crack in the door, I heard a weak, rasping voice I recognized as his father's, Mr. Blackwood. "You must win the Vance girl back," the old man wheezed, his voice full of a desperate anger. "The company, it won't survive this quarter otherwise." "Dad," Arthur's voice was strained, frustrated. "Alara hates me to the bone now. It's impossible. I don't care how you do it." Mr. Blackwood erupted, followed by a fit of wet, hacking coughs. "Get on your knees if you have to. If you hadn't insisted on being with that Sophia Vance, the Vances never would have pulled their investment. She's nothing but trouble." "Dad, Sophia." "Shut up." Mr. Blackwood's voice dropped to a conspiratorial, venomous whisper, but I was close enough to catch the key part. "If you can't get Alara's forgiveness, then go see Mr. Giancarlo." A cold shiver of revulsion ran down my spine. Mr. Giancarlo. The name was infamous in certain circles. A notoriously ruthless business magnate rumored to have a particular appreciation for pretty-faced young men. I nearly gagged right there in the hallway. So, for the sake of their company, Arthur's own father was ready to pimp him out. I was about to lean in closer when the elevator at the end of the hallway dinged open. Sophia stepped out, clicking along the linoleum in ridiculously high heels. She was carrying shopping bags from several luxury bout irons, her face glowing from a fresh facial. She looked like she was on a spa day, not visiting a critically ill family friend. "Arthur," she called, her voice saccharine sweet. "Why didn't you answer my calls? I found this divine new bag at the boutique. You have to see it." "My dad's in the ICU, Sophia." Arthur's voice was ice cold. "Didn't I tell you to handle the press releases for me? And you're out buying a purse." "The doctor said he's not in any life-threatening danger," she pouted, her tone wounded. "And you promised me that bag last night. Why are you being so mean? It's not my fault your company is having problems." I saw Arthur's shoulders tense, but just as quickly they slumped in defeat. Seeing her pout and act pitiful, he backed down as he always did. "Fine. Just, not now, okay?" I didn't bother watching the rest of this pathetic farce. After grabbing a bland sandwich from the hospital cafeteria, I went back to the parking garage. Leo was already there, waiting by his car, his expression a mixture of relief and stern disapproval. "Alara, he began, but then he saw the look on my face. "What happened?" I shook my head, getting into the passenger seat. "Nothing. Just saw a couple of ghosts from my past." As he started the car, I added, "Leo, I'm starting to doubt my own choices." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you mean, Alara?" I took a deep breath. "Arthur. I saw him just now. His father is here. It's bad." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Lately he's been acting really suspicious. I found out Sophia had a boyfriend back in the UK, some guy named Mark. She drained his bank account before coming back here. And after she came back, she's been in constant secret contact with someone called Brother Kong." Leo glanced at me, a flicker of pain and confusion in his eyes. "Who's Brother Kong?" "I don't know for sure," I said, which was technically true in this timeline. "But it doesn't sound good. I think Arthur is finally starting to see her true colors and he's panicking." I almost laughed at the sheer, bitter irony of it. So this was his precious first love, the woman he had chosen over me on his deathbed. He was finally getting a taste of his own medicine. We drove in silence for a few minutes before he suddenly pulled over onto a quiet side street. He turned to me, his expression serious. "Alara, give me one more chance." I stared at him, stunned. "What?" "I know you still care about him. I see the way you look when his name comes up. But it's not too late for us. If you can just talk to your father, if the Vances would just reconsider investing. I promise I'll cut all ties with Sophia. We can be happy. I'll treat you the way you deserve to be treated." The performance was so transparent, so pathetic that I felt a fresh wave of disgust. "Arthur," I said, my voice like steel. "Are you here because you've finally seen Sophia's true, grifting face? Or is it because the Blackwood Group is about to go bankrupt?" He froze, his face alternating between red and white, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I knew I had hit the nail directly on the head. "Impossible," I said firmly, cutting off any further attempt at manipulation. "Some mistakes, Arthur, take a lifetime to repay." Without another glance, I got out of the car. Leo, who had been waiting patiently, got out as well, coming to stand by my side. Behind me, Arthur's voice carried a raw, desperate edge I had never heard from him before. "Alara, please." I didn't look back. I got into Leo's car and we drove away, leaving Arthur standing alone on the curb, his world crumbling around him. Up in my apartment, Leo handed me a freshly printed special issue of Business Weekly. "Your dad pulled some strings to get us this feature," he said, a proud smile on his face. The headline read, "Ether Tech, Post-90s Entrepreneurs Using AI to Transform Medical Imaging." The article was glowing, praising our innovation and our clear path to market. The moment this hit the shelves, Leo said, his eyes shining, our company phones started ringing off the hook. "We've had calls from 3 more major VC firms since this morning." That evening we sat in the office, the TV playing in the background. The financial news came on and the lead story made me pause. Blackwood Group's stock plummeted another 9% today, hitting a 5-year low, the anchor reported crisply. Sources say the company's flagship waterfront development project faces the risk of being abandoned due to a completely broken capital chain. "Want me to change the channel?" Leo asked softly, remote in hand. "No," I said evenly, my eyes fixed on the screen on the graph showing the Blackwood stock in a death spiral. "It's fine. The business world is like this. Winner takes all." Leo studied me thoughtfully for a long moment. "You've really let it go, haven't you?" he finally said, his voice full of wonder. I looked away from the TV, out the window into the ink-dark night. "Some people are only fit to live in memories, Leo," I whispered. "And some memories are best sealed away forever. Like those 50 years in my last life. Like that cruel final sentence he uttered before he died." Just then a call came in on the office landline. It was Sarah, our lead tech. Her voice was tight with panic. "Mr. Thorne. Miss Vance. The server's under attack again. This one's stronger than before. The firewall is about to collapse." Leo and I exchanged a single grim look and rushed to the server room. Inside, the small team was in a state of controlled chaos. On the main screen, the firewall's defense percentage was plummeting at an alarming rate. 87%, 63%, 41%. My palms were slick with sweat. This was it. They were going to break through. "Don't worry," Leo murmured, his voice eerily calm as he strode to the main control station. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Activate the honeypot. And the tracer. This time we're getting solid evidence." The seconds stretched into an eternity. Then one of the junior programmers shouted, "Got it. Attacker's IP is located. It's coming from a hotel downtown. The Riverside Plaza. Call the police," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I immediately dialed 911, reporting a case of corporate espionage and attempted data theft. 3 hours later, the police raided the hotel room. They caught a man known as Brother Kong and Sophia Vance in the act. Their laptops connected to our servers, the stolen algorithm data flashing on the screens. The police report later confirmed they had hired a professional hacking team, financed by Sophia using the last of her family's dwindled funds, to steal our core technology and sell it to an overseas conglomerate. That night, long after the news had broken, Arthur staggered drunkenly into our office lobby. His suit was rumpled and stained, the stench of cheap whiskey clinging to him like a shroud. His eyes were bloodshot, his face a mask of utter despair. "You," he slurred, pointing a trembling finger at me. You knew about Sophia and that thug." I ignored him, continuing to pack my things. He stumbled closer, almost tripping over a chair. So you've won," he suddenly shouted, his voice breaking with hysteria. "Are you happy now? I'm the biggest joke in this entire city. The wedding invitations were already sent out. And the bride gets arrested in a hotel room with another man. For commercial espionage." "Arthur," I said calmly, finally looking at him. "I didn't win. I never considered you my opponent." The words hit him like a physical blow, making him stagger back a step. "Sophia?" he mumbled, his mind struggling to catch up. She acted on her own. I didn't know. I didn't benefit from it. Doesn't that mean you can forgive me?" "Arthur," I cut him off, my patience gone. "Sophia broke the law, but she did it for you, for your failing company. But what about you?" I took a step toward him, my gaze unwavering. "First, you suspected she was cheating on you and came crying to me. Now you're throwing her under the bus, calling her a criminal. You've never once reflected on your own mistakes. Are you even a man? Arthur Blackwood, the man who had once been so arrogant and proud, suddenly dropped to his knees. The sound of his knees hitting the hard floor was a dull, final thud. Elara, I was wrong, he sobbed, his shoulders shaking. I really know I was wrong. A wave of pity washed over me, so pathetic it was almost sympathy. In my past life I had loved this man for 50 years. And now he was kneeling in front of me, putting on a clumsy, drunken performance of remorse. Get up, Arthur, I said tiredly. Don't make yourself more pathetic than you already are. He lifted his head, a flicker of desperate hope in his red-rimmed eyes. You forgive me? Impossible, I said, the word flat and absolute. It shattered him completely. Arthur collapsed onto the floor, curling into a fetal position, wailing like a heartbroken child. I've lost everything, he cried, his voice muffled by the carpet. Sophia's a criminal. The company's going bankrupt. My dad's dying in the hospital. Leo, who had been standing silently by the door, wisely observing, walked over and silently handed him a box of tissues. Then he gently took my arm and guided me out of the office, closing the door softly behind us, leaving Arthur to his well-deserved breakdown. Once we were outside in the hallway, Leo pulled me into a quiet hug. Elara, he said once Arthur's sobs had subsided into muffled sniffles. Do you know why I don't pity him? I shook my head, burying my face in his shoulder, breathing in his clean, familiar scent of coffee and code. Because all of this, he said softly, is the result of his own choices. From inside the office, we heard Arthur's muffled voice. I didn't know it would turn out like this. Yes, you did, I said, pulling away and looking through the glass panel in the door at his crumpled form. I wasn't shouting. I was just stating a fact. Because I know you too well, Arthur Blackwood. You've always been a selfish man. He opened his mouth but no sound came out. Now please leave. I pressed the button for building security. Arthur swayed to his feet, looking ancient. Before the guards arrived, he suddenly turned, his eyes meeting mine one last time. If I hadn't chosen Sophia back then, he whispered, the question hanging in the air, charged with a lifetime of regret. Would we have been happy? The cruelty of that question lay in the fact that I already knew the answer. I had spent 50 years in my past life proving it. Even if he hadn't chosen Sophia, we wouldn't have been happy. Because deep down he was and always would be selfish to the core. No, I told him honestly, my voice devoid of malice. Because you'll always only love yourself. Security arrived and escorted a broken, weeping Arthur away. Leo returned to the office and quietly handed me a cup of hot tea. Are you okay? He asked softly. I shook my head, suddenly feeling more exhausted than I ever had in both my lives. I want to go home. He nodded. I'll take you. In his car, parked in the quiet of my apartment's underground garage, I finally let the tears fall. They weren't for Arthur. They were for the version of myself in my previous life. The foolish Elara Vance who had loved for a lifetime without ever being truly, selflessly loved in return. Leo didn't say a word. He just handed me a packet of tissues, turned up the heat and waited, a silent, steady presence in the dark. When my tears were spent, he simply said, "Whenever you're ready." The car rolled out of the garage and into the ink-black night, leaving the ghosts of the past buried deep behind us. A new life was waiting. The silence in the car was heavy, but it was a comfortable weight. Leo didn't press me to talk, his focus entirely on the road, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of my emotions. The tears I had shed weren't of sadness but of release. It was the final funeral for my past life, for the woman I had been, for the love I had wasted. As we pulled up to my apartment building, the sky was beginning to lighten from black to a deep, bruised blue. "Thank you, Leo," I said, my voice hoarse. "For everything." He turned to me, his face illuminated by the dashboard lights. "You never have to thank me for that, Elara." He reached out, his hand hesitating for a second before gently brushing a stray tear from my cheek. The touch was electric, a simple gesture that held more tenderness than Arthur had shown me in 50 years. "Get some rest. I'll handle the press and the investors today." I nodded, unable to form any more words. As I watched his car disappear around the corner, I felt a profound sense of peace. The chapter of Arthur Blackwood was closed, its final page stained with tears and regret. But it was finally, irrevocably, over. The news of Sophia's arrest and its connection to the Blackwood Group's collapse was the scandal of the season. The business press had a field day. Blackwood heir's fiancé arrested in corporate espionage plot. Arthur Tech victim and victor. The narrative was set in stone. We were the brilliant, wronged innovators. They were the corrupt, desperate dinosaurs. A week after the arrest, I was in my new office. A proper, sunlit space in the tech incubator we'd moved into, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Leo. Are you free tonight? My parents are in town. They want to invite you to dinner. My heart did a little flip-flop. This felt different, more significant than any investor meeting. I couldn't help the smile that spread across my face. Of course I'm free, I typed back. Do I need to dress formally? His reply was almost immediate. No, just a casual family meal. My mom heard you like sea bass, so she learned to make it the way it's done in your hometown. A warmth swelled in my chest, so intense it was almost painful. So, this is what it felt like to be cherished, to be thought of in such a simple, profound way. In all my years with Arthur, his family had never once asked about my preferences. I was just the girl he had settled for. That evening Leo picked me up. The dinner was at a cozy, family-owned Italian restaurant his parents loved. Jonathan and Maria Thorne were nothing like the stuffy, status-obsessed people I was used to. Jonathan, a retired history professor, had a quiet, thoughtful intelligence, and Maria, a landscape artist, was warm and effusive. They didn't grill me about my family's wealth or my career prospects. Instead, they asked about my studies, my thoughts on the future of technology, and told hilarious, embarrassing stories about a young Leo trying to build a robot that would fetch him snacks. I watched Leo throughout the evening, seeing the easy affection he had with his parents, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. This was the real man, far removed from the tech prodigy the world was beginning to see. He was kind, grounded, and deeply good. After dinner, Leo drove me home and parked beneath my apartment building, but he didn't rush to say goodbye. The comfortable silence from the night in the garage returned, but this time it was filled with a different kind of tension, sweet and anticipatory. Ilara. Leo Miller hesitated, his fingers tapping a nervous rhythm on the steering wheel. My parents, they really like you. I like them too, I said with a genuine smile. Your mom's sea bass was incredible. He drew in a deep breath as if steeling himself for a plunge, then suddenly turned to me. The interior light was off, but his eyes shone with an almost startling brightness in the dark. Then, do you like me? Seeing how uncharacteristically nervous he looked, the brilliant coder who could face down hacker attacks without flinching, I suddenly felt the urge to tease him. As a business partner, I said deliberately, watching his shoulders slump in defeat, of course I like you. His face fell. Oh. And, I continued, leaning closer, closing the distance between us in the intimate confines of the car. As a boyfriend candidate, the reviews are also very positive. He jerked his head up so quickly his glasses almost slipped off his nose. Really? He breathed, his voice full of hope and disbelief. Really? I nodded, my smile softening into something more real, more vulnerable. Yes, Leo Thorne. Let's be together. The next second I was pulled into a warm, secure embrace. He held me tightly as if I were something precious, and I could feel the frantic, joyful pounding of his heart against my ear. I promise I'll treat you well, he whispered, his voice low and certain, resonating through his chest and into mine. Better than anyone else ever could. As I rested my head on his shoulder, the last of the haze from my past sorrows seemed to drift away like smoke. The ghosts were finally silent. A brand new life, bright and full of promise, had truly only just begun. The months that followed were the happiest and most productive of my life in either lifetime. With the Blackwood scandal receding into the past and a clear runway ahead, Ether Tech soared. The investment from Mr. Chin, combined with the publicity from the failed hacking attempt, made us the darlings of the tech world. We grew from a team of 5 crammed into a lab to 20 employees in a sleek, modern office. Working with Leo was a revelation. Where Arthur had taken credit for my ideas, Leo amplified them. He was the technical visionary, the architect of our AI's brain. I was the strategist, the one who could see the path to market, who understood the complexities of healthcare systems and regulatory hurdles. We were a perfect symbiosis. Our disagreements were passionate but respectful, always ending with a better solution than either of us could have conceived alone. And outside the office we were learning each other. Our dates were a mix of nerdy excitement, like testing early prototypes in a simulated clinical environment, and simple, quiet moments. We'd spend Sunday afternoons in his apartment, him coding while I read market analyses, a comfortable silence between us that felt more intimate than any conversation. One evening we were working late, finalizing a major partnership with a regional hospital network. I was reviewing the contract for the 10th time when I felt his eyes on me. I looked up from my laptop. "What?" I asked, smiling. "Nothing," he said, shaking his head with a look of quiet wonder. I can't believe my luck. I get to build my dream with the most brilliant, beautiful woman I've ever met." My heart swelled. This was what a real partnership felt like. It wasn't about power or control. It was about mutual admiration and shared dreams. The success of EtherTech was a stark contrast to the complete dissolution of the Blackwood Empire. Their company was officially liquidated, its assets sold off to pay its massive debts. Arthur's father passed away shortly after, the stress and shame said to have been the final blow. Arthur himself vanished from the city's social scene. Rumor had it he had moved to a small nowhere town, living off the last remnants of a trust fund that was shielded from creditors. The mighty had fallen, and I felt nothing but a distant, quiet pity. He was a stranger to me now. On the 1-year anniversary of my rebirth, Leo and I were celebrating a major milestone. Our AI system had officially received its first round of clinical approvals. We were at a quiet, upscale restaurant, toasting with a glass of champagne. "A year ago," I said, clinking my glass against his, "I was a different person. I thought my life was on a fixed, miserable track. I can't believe how much has changed." "It's because you had the courage to change it," he said, his gaze intense. "You walked away from what was safe and expected, and you built something extraordinary." Later, as we shared a decadent chocolate dessert, he grew quiet again, a nervous energy returning to him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath hitched. "Elara," he began, his voice slightly unsteady. "Building this company with you has been the greatest professional achievement of my life. But building a life with you, that's the greatest joy I've ever known. You are my partner in every sense of the word. My best friend, my greatest ally, the love of my life." He opened the box. Nestled inside was a beautiful, elegant ring, a single, perfect emerald-cut diamond set on a simple platinum band. It was understated, sophisticated, and utterly perfect for me. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes full of so much love and hope it almost brought me to tears. In my past life, Arthur's proposal had been a calculated affair, more a business merger than a romantic gesture. This was everything. "Yes," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Leo. 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto my finger, and it fit as if it had been made for me. Perhaps it had. As we kissed, surrounded by the soft murmur of the restaurant, I knew with a certainty that spanned 2 lifetimes that this was my destiny. Not a life of quiet desperation, but one of passionate creation and profound, reciprocated love. The future was no longer something to be endured. It was a blank canvas, and we would paint it together. The engagement period was a whirlwind of joy. My parents, who had watched me transform from a heartbroken girl into a confident CO, were overjoyed. They adored Leo, seeing in him the kind of man they had always hoped for me. Someone who saw my strength not as a threat but as a virtue. We were deep in wedding planning, a happy chaos of cake tastings and venue visits, when a letter arrived at my office. It was addressed to me in a shaky, unfamiliar handwriting. The postmark was from a small town hundreds of miles away. Curious, I opened it. The letter was short, written on a plain sheet of paper. "Lara, I know I have no right to write to you. I heard about your engagement. I saw the announcement in the business section. I am living a simple life now. It's a humbler existence than I ever imagined, but it's honest. I work as a clerk in a local library. It gives me time to think. And I have done nothing but think for these past months. I was a fool. I was arrogant, selfish, and blind. I threw away something precious for a glittering illusion. I see that now with a clarity that is almost painful. What I had with Sophia was a fantasy, a rebellion. What I had with you was real, and I was too much of a coward to appreciate it. I don't expect a reply. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I am truly, deeply sorry for the pain I caused you. You deserved so much better than I ever was. I wish you and Leo a lifetime of happiness. You have built something incredible, and he seems like a good man. You deserve that, Arthur. I held the letter, the paper feeling fragile in my hands. There was no anger left, no bitterness. Just a faint, melancholic pity. He was right. He didn't deserve my forgiveness, but the letter felt like a genuine final attempt at closure from a broken man. It was the ghost of my past life finally laying itself to rest. I didn't show the letter to Leo. There was no need. That chapter was closed. I folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope and tucked it away in the back of a drawer. It was an artifact, a reminder of a road not taken, a life not lived. The rest of the wedding preparations continued with renewed joy. We decided on a small, intimate ceremony in a botanical garden, surrounded by our closest family and friends and the entire EtherTech team. There were no ghosts at the wedding, only the bright, shining promise of the future. The wedding day was perfect. As I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, seeing Leo waiting for me under a canopy of blooming wisteria, his eyes filled with tears of joy, I knew I had made the right choice in every possible way. Our vows were personal, speaking of partnership, shared dreams, and a love that felt both brand new and eternally familiar. The years that followed were a testament to that partnership. EtherTech didn't just succeed. It revolutionized early-stage cancer detection. We saved lives. We built a company known for its ethics as much as its innovation. We had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and we raised them in a home filled with laughter, respect, and the unwavering knowledge that they were loved. I never forgot my first life. It was a part of me, a shadow that gave depth to my happiness. But it no longer had any power over me. I had lived 2 lifetimes. One for a man who saw me as second best and one for a man who saw me as his equal, his other half. On our 50th wedding anniversary, our children and grandchildren threw us a huge party. Leo, his hair now silver but his eyes still bright behind his glasses, stood to make a toast. 50 years ago, he said, his voice strong and clear, holding my gaze, I married the woman who showed me that the most complex code in the world is simple compared to the human heart. You have been my co-founder, my navigator, my best friend, and the great love of my life. Every day with you has been a gift. As everyone cheered, he leaned in and kissed me. And in that kiss, I felt the entire beautiful arc of our life together. The struggles, the triumphs, the quiet mornings, and the loud celebrations. I had been given a second chance and I had lived it fully without reservation. I had loved and been loved. I had built a legacy. And as I looked around at my family, my friends, and the man who had stood by me for half a century, I knew that this was the life I was always meant to live. The autumn of my first life had been a prelude to decay, but the autumn of this life was golden, rich, and deeply, profoundly satisfying. The end.
George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall, an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. Aren't you allergic to mangoes? I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing. I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. When did you start smoking? I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor. I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level. Frank's eyes widened. You mean, she's not Mary? I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up. 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. Mary is an only child. We all know that. I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. George, Mary is going to have a baby, my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that? I managed to ask. Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life. My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. Mary, could you come here for a moment? I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. Did you forget about this? I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. George, I can explain. Explain what? Explain that you're not Mary at all. Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. What's going on with you two? Mom, take a look at this. I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. What's going on? Mary, you can't have children. Of course she can, I sneered, because she's not Mary at all. My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. What nonsense are you talking about? I can explain. She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly. My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. George, you're being too paranoid. My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her. Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen. Tears welled up in her eyes. Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby. I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. All right, I believe you. I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hard to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. "This is a surprise I prepared for you," I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. "To celebrate the new life we're about to begin." She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. "It's beautiful, thank you." She smiled as she prepared to put it on. "Wait," I stopped her. "Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back?" She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved." She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. "See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace." I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, "After all, this is your final design." Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. "Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light." On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. "The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon," I replied with a smile. "This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it." Mary immediately chimed in, "Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future." I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. "Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting." Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, "Mary. This is my wife, Mary." I took her hand and stepped forward. "Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me." She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. "Is she really Mary?" The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. "The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost." I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. "Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew." The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, My mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only a year and a half. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece. believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. "Mr. George," a stranger's voice called from behind. "Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared." He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. "And you are?" "I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area," she explained with a smile. "I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit." "Thank you." I nodded. "I'll be leaving soon." She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. "That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive." "It's blood amber," I explained, "a very rare gemstone." "I know," she said softly, "top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare." I looked at her in surprise. "You know a lot about jewelry?" She smiled. "I study jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here." For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. "If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting?" she asked. "My wife," I replied. "She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer." "I'm very sorry," she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. "This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently." She nodded thoughtfully. "Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her." For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. "Sorry, I have to continue my rounds." She glanced at her watch. "See you tomorrow, Mr. George." "See you tomorrow," I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. "Who is this?" The response came quickly. "Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow." Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall, but there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. "Mr. George, thank you for coming." The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. "Did you send the email?" I asked directly. She nodded. "There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me?" We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, "In memory, dedicated to teacher Mary." Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. "New friend?" he asked me quietly. "Mary's student," I explained simply. "Very talented." Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the 3 of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. "Mr. George," Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've always had a question I wanted to ask you." "What is it?" "After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next?" The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. "I haven't decided yet," I answered honestly. "It might take some time to find a new direction." Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. "Maybe," Nicole said softly, "you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further." I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. "You mean creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry?" "Exactly," Nicole said excitedly. "Your paintings create emotion in 2-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the 3-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect." The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, "I have to confess something." I looked at her in confusion. "I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you," she said candidly. "I want to become a designer like Nicole, Someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, "See, I knew you would find a new direction." When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. "Am I really up to the task?" she asked me in the studio. "You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone," I assured her. "That's exactly what I need." In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. "This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it." At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," I said with a smile. "I think Mary really would like it." She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, "Professor George, may I ask you a personal question?" "What is it?" "When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole." I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." How is your sister's illness? I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true. Yes, she nodded. My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes. Even though I may never be able to. I was silent for a moment, then said, in a way, your appearance actually helped me. What do you mean? It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward. I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare, she said at last. I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well. As she left, she handed me a small package. These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them. Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. You forgave her? Nicole was a bit surprised. Not exactly forgiveness. I said thoughtfully, it's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes. Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design. Perhaps, I said, everyone has the possibility of being reborn. On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. Who was that? Nicole asked, standing beside me. Someone searching for rebirth, I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. Thank you, I whispered to Nicole. Without you, this series might never have come into being. It was your philosophy that guided us, Teacher Nicole, she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. This is an unprecedented opportunity, Frank said excitedly. If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market. I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. Which offer are you planning to accept? One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. To be honest, I'm still hesitating. Nicole paused her work. These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you. She looked straight into my eyes. Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it? Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. You should consider your own career development, I said tactfully. These opportunities are very rare for young designers. Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. I understand. In the days that followed, We were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. Congratulations, I said sincerely. It's a very good choice. Thank you, she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. I think this is the best arrangement for both of us. Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. Are you really going to just let her go like this? What do you mean? I pretended not to understand. Don't play dumb, man, Frank said bluntly. You have feelings for her. That's obvious. That's just professional rapport, I argued. Is that so? Frank looked at me meaningfully. Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France? I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. I know what you're worried about, Frank lowered his voice. You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you? I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. Mary has been gone for 3 years now. Frank gently patted my shoulder. She would want you to be happy. After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months. Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we've found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence, no matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.